All right, so the Miami Hurricanes going into 2021 should definitely have some high expectations, or they definitely should have some high expectations. So, since this is going to be a very, very talented offensive juggernaut, in my opinion, going into the 2021 season, more specifically competing in the ACC conference, right? The ACC is really not the strongest conference in the world. Really, it's Clemson and everybody else, but Miami has a lot of talent. They're probably the second on paper, the second most talented team in the ACC. And we will see what the Miami Hurricanes will definitely do going into 2021. But of course, this is going to be Manny Diaz's third year with the Miami Hurricanes. Again, he's going to have a lot of talent. We'll see what they do. But starting off with the quarterback position with eriqKing, is he going to be ready for the fall season? Because guess what? Your first game is against my Alabama Crimson Tide. And we all know, even though Alabama did lose a lot of production, it's Alabama. They reload. They haven't had a losing season since the 2006 season. They haven't had a season where they didn't have more than 10 wins since the 2007 season. So Alabama's going to be reloaded. They're going to be ready to go. And the Miami Hurricanes has been a team that's just been inconsistent. One year they're good or they're decent. I'm not even going to say they're good. They're decent. The other year they just kind of just fall off to the bottom. So we don't know what type of Miami team we're getting, even though on paper they're very, very talented. But with eriqKing being injured against Oklahoma State in that bowl game, we got to figure out if he's going to be ready for that game or not. Now you got Van Dyke. You recruited Jake Garcia from Grayson or from the former Narbonne quarterback in California. But is he going to be ready as a true freshman? Is Van Dyke going to be ready? I'm just not too particularly sure. So they got to figure out backup plans if eriqKing can't go. But even if eriqKing is the guy, is he a good enough quarterback to beat Alabama? We didn't see it last year when he faced against the major powerhouse teams in the AC like North Carolina and Clemson. I'm just not too sure if he can do it against Alabama anyway. So, again, we'll figure it out because there's a lot of production that's coming back, but it starts off with that quarterback position. The running back position is where it's at. The running back position is very, very good this year for the Miami Hurricanes. You got Don Chaney Jr., Cameron Harris was their leading back, but was a powerhouse, and then Jalen Knighton. One of the best running back cores in the entire country, and I think that Miami fans should definitely be excited for. You're talking about a running back group that had over 1,700 yards rushing, and a running back group that if they played on a full game schedule, this could have been by far one of the top rushing attacks in the country. Then you have to add in eriqKing with the mobility, with the use of his legs, and again, just how huge he was as a running quarterback for the Miami Hurricanes and just a playmaker in general. So the running back group is going to be very, very good. The offensive line, it's been really inconsistent. Last year, I felt like they took a big step last year. I'm just not entirely confident that this offensive line is going to be a good unit once again. And Miami fans later down the stretch, they were just, I don't know. They kind of played at an average level in my opinion. I'm not, again, I could be wrong about that. That's just my opinion. But I'm just not really too confident about this offensive line. Now they have some production. They have a lot of returning production, and with a lot of the experience that should be coming back for them. And again, the talent I feel like has been improved. That's kind of one area that's been lacking for Miami. It's really talent for their offensive line. So the fact that they're bringing in a lot of talent from their earlier recruiting classes with a mixture of some returning experience, I think that for the Miami Hurricanes, they should be a good unit. But again, we'll just have to see what type of production we're going to get from their offensive line for the 2021 season. Receivers is going to be absolutely loaded. And I think this is going to be the main core of their strength is going to be the receiving unit, right? You got Mark Pope, you got Wiggins, you got Merrily coming back. Those are very, very big receivers. And then you have Charleston Rambo, a transfer, more of a deep threat receiver from Oklahoma that's coming in. That's a big, big deal. I felt like one of the biggest issues that they were missing was that clear vertical threat, that clear deep threat receiver. Charleston Rambo provides that for the Miami Hurricanes. So tons of experience. Again, I understand that, Mark Pope and, Wiggins, those guys were kind of, fans were a little frustrated because of inconsistent play. But however, with Charleston Rambo coming in, again, this is going to be one of the most experienced and talented receiving corps in all of college football, especially in the ACC conference. Let's talk about their tight end position too, right? You bring back Will Mallory. That's a big deal. Will Mallory and Brevin Jordan were one of the best tight end duos in all of college football. Losing Brevin Jordan, who's been a huge, impactful player for the Miami Hurricanes over the last 3 years, you need someone that can step in his shoes right away. Now, Mallory's not better than Brevin Jordan, but this is a guy that's very, very productive at the tight end position. You're talking about a guy that had over 300 yards, had around 4 or 5 receiving touchdowns, and he has good size at 6'5", 250 pounds. He's a very, very good receiving threat that plays at the Y or that YH type of position. So I like Will Mallory as far as being an extra weapon for eriqKing, Van Dyke, or Jake Garcia, whoever their quarterback is going to be. And again, that's just saying if eriqKing is going to be ready for the start of the season. Defensively, they have a strong secondary. They have a very, very strong, I think they're going to have a strong secondary. Tyreek Stevenson, who was more of that star hybrid safety type of corner that can definitely play outside, he is going to be coming in. Now, I think the reason why he transferred to the University of Miami is because he wanted to be a number one corner. He was more of a nickel star type of player there. He didn't want to be that. He didn't really like that role, in my opinion. So I feel like going to Miami, he has a chance to battle for a number one starting position. Elijah Blades, I think, had medical concerns. So again, they have talent. I would just say that the secondary has talent at those cornerback positions. Again, Tyreek Stevenson was a big, big deal for them. They also have, a little. I think they have some returning production there as well. But the biggest one was, of course, Tyreek Stevenson. Bubba Bolden in their secondary, as far as their safety position, he was by far their best player in the secondary. I will say this, though, he did drop off a little bit late towards the season, but having a guy like Bubba Bolden come back is very, very huge. Now, their linebacking position and their defensive line position is where I have question marks. When you lose Jalen Phillips and Quincy Roche, and then you lose Gregory Rousseau when he opted out earlier in the season, man, that's 3 huge losses for the Miami Hurricanes. You're talking about losing 3 of your top sacking production. Well, of course, Gregory Rousseau has been a monster for Miami, especially what he did in his sophomore campaign. But losing guys like Jalen Phillips and Quincy Roche, guys that were transfers, by the way, one came from Temple, the other one came from UCLA, losing NFL starting quality talent like that is a big, big deal. And they don't really have the depth at those edge rushing positions. This is why, Miami, they went to the transfer portal because they wanted to rebuild. They wanted to get impactful players right away. But here's the problem with the transfer portal is that when you're getting players from the transfer portal, that's kind of signifying a win now mentality. That's signifying that they're ready to win now and compete for conference championships and for national championships. Transfer players are one and done players. For the most part, they're one and done players. They're there for about a year or two, then they're gone. They're not there for the long term. So Miami went to the transfer portal and they got a guy in DeAndre Jordan from the University of Tennessee. Now, they're going to put him as an edge rusher. Or I think they're going to move him inside. I'm not too particularly sure. But if he plays up to the standard and he plays at a very, very high level and he leaves the next year, who's going to be that next guy behind him? Miami can't keep going to the transfer portal if they're going to get those production. Again, you got Charleston Rambo, Tyreek Stevenson. But if they perform well and go to the NFL, they don't have the depth behind those guys. So that's just kind of my quick little rant about that. But yeah, Jalen Phillips and Quincy Roche, huge production that's gone. Nesta is probably the best defensive lineman as a defensive tackle. He had around 31 tackles. I think around like 5.5 tackles for loss. So he had some production there. But there's really just not a lot of notable names there. So the defensive line is an issue. The linebacking position is a big issue. Huge issue. By far their weakest group last year. And it might still be it. Now, they do have some type of talent there. I know that, again, their last recruiting class kind of was the main focus on that. But, boy, the linebacking position was a weakness for the Miami Hurricanes last year. And now, going into this year, it still might be that much of an issue. So, defensively was a strength for the Hurricanes last year. And now it actually might end up kind of being a little bit of a weakness. I will say, though, looking at their schedule, you play Alabama. Man, That's a big game. I will just say that. It's a big game for them. And then after that is Michigan State. And Michigan State, yes, they've been struggling over the last 3 seasons, but it's Michigan State at the end of the day. They're still an FBS program. They're not an FCS program. So I think that Miami can find a little bit of a challenge with them. Besides that, though, really their toughest 2 games are and North Carolina and Pittsburgh. But it is the ACC. It's been very, very competitive in that league. They don't face Clemson, so that's a good sign. But overall wise, Miami, if for Miami fans, Miami fans have expectations. And Manny Diaz has had this expectation that he can revive this program. Now, last year was a good year up until the North Carolina game. They ended up with 1 loss up until the North Carolina game when they rushed for over 400 rushing yards on you. That's not good. And then you ended up losing to Oklahoma State the following week, or the following bowl week. So right now, Miami is a team that has a lot of talent. They ended up with the 8th best recruiting class in the country. They've really done a good job with recruiting the state of Florida, but there's a lot of competition. There's Alabama, there's a bunch of other powerhouse schools, there's Florida State, and then there's Florida that you have to compete with. So it's not really easy to get those top players out of your state. Now, James Williams and Leonard Taylor, that's huge, but however, can you really develop those players right off the gate? I'm not too sure about that. And for Miami to keep going to the transfer portal because they're lacking depth and experience in those positions, it's just not that good of a sign, at least right now, that Miami is ready to be competing with the likes of Clemson or the powerhouse schools like Alabama for competing for national championships. Is something that Miami used to do, and that's something that Miami fans will hope to do. Manny Diaz in my opinion, has a long way to go before they can get there. But obviously going into 2021, we will find out what the Miami Hurricanes will be all about, and it starts with that first game against Alabama.